In this week's Morning Rounds, an intimate look at the devastating progression of Alzheimer's disease. According to the Alzheimer's Association, every 65 seconds, someone in the U.S. develops the disease, the most common form of dementia.
In a remarkable report airing on 60 Minutes tomorrow night, CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. Jon LaPook followed one patient and her caregiver-husband for a decade to give an unprecedented look at this debilitating condition. And Dr. Jon LaPook joins us now with a preview. Good morning.
Good morning, Dana. In 2008, I first met Carol Daly, who has Alzheimer's, and her husband, Mike, a retired New York City cop. Over the years, I visited them 6 times for the CBS Evening News. And this January, I returned with 60 Minutes to see how they were doing. We pieced it all together to give a unique look at the toll the disease takes on both the patient and the caregiver.
When you heard the word Alzheimer's, what did that do to you?
I was devastated.
What makes this story so unusual is that almost every year for the past 10 years, we've interviewed Mike and Carol as Alzheimer's took over her brain. Even though this is intensely personal, they wanted all of us to see the devastating impact of Alzheimer's on each of them over a decade.
What's your husband's name?
My husband's?
Your husband's name?
Yeah.
The guy sitting to your left?
Yeah.
It's just devastating. You said it. I mean, you said to us in the break, people have responded on Twitter already saying this is hard to look at and I don't know, but we have to deal with this because this is hitting an overwhelming number of people. Are we ready to deal with those numbers?
No, we're not ready for it. We're not ready for it right now. I mean, there's 5.5 million or so people with Alzheimer's. For every one person with Alzheimer's is about 10 other people who are deeply affected. It's costing hundreds of billions of dollars in direct costs and hundreds of billions of dollars in loss of income from caregivers who have to quit their jobs to help take care of them.
Let's talk about that because Carol's husband Mike becomes her caregiver.
Absolutely.
And this runs for 10 years now,
10 years.
Which is extraordinary. What is the toll on Mike over this period of time, mentally and physically?
It takes a huge toll on him. I mean, he's so lovely. He said, look, in sickness, this is what I signed up for. Yeah. And you see him combing her hair and putting makeup on her and making the beds. And he said, look, just the roles are reversed. You know, she used to do this, and I signed up for this. He said, I'm not going to put her in a nursing home. You know, I can take care of it. But he couldn't take care of it. And over the years, his blood pressure went up. His weight went up. Yeah. He became anxious. He had panic attacks. And it got to the point where he just simply couldn't do it on his own. And I think that's a lesson for it. This is a big message. You may think you're tough. You know, he's a Staten Island cop, retired New York City cop, tough as nails until Alzheimer's. You cannot do it alone.
And that's sort of the message that everybody has to take away from this.
I think it is. And, you know, he had some help. First of all, Dr. Gayatri Devi is his neurologist. I mean, she has been unbelievable. You know, you're a physician, but then you sort of cross over into friend also. She's been both of that to both of them. I find that same friction. You know, I have the physician hat. I have the journalist hat. I have the person hat. And, you know, over 10 years, you become friendly with these people.
John, I was struck by that number, 10 years. That's a long time for an Alzheimer's patient, isn't it?
It is. And the Alzheimer's Association told us they don't know of another report where somebody was followed with Alzheimer's, and certainly in their caregiver, for 10 years. I mean, the average time that between diagnosis and dying is about 4 to 8 years. It can go as long as 20 years. There's a spectrum, as Dr. Devi just wrote in the New England Journal.
Are we just diagnosing Alzheimer's earlier now? Is that part of this, or this just happens to be a unique case?
I think in her case, it's very unusual that she lived this long. I was just talking to Dr. Devi this morning, and she said she was surprised that she lived this longer. But, you know, there is hope. I mean, there are new approaches to diagnosis, and one of the big things is that we think that we're treating people probably way too late. It's like giving somebody Lipitor after their 5th heart attack, and they're already in heart failure. You gotta. It turns out that the problems inside the brain, the pathological changes, start 10, 20, 30 years before the symptoms even start. And the other thing I want to point out is people have to have discussions when they're still with it about what their desires are. If I get to the point where I have to be in a nursing home, is that okay? You know, if you can't handle me alone, if I become demented or otherwise infirmed, then is it okay to bring in outside help? I mean, that is so important. They're tough discussions, and Americans don't like to have those discussions about end of life. We have to do it.
All right. Dr. Jon LaPook, thank you very much. And you can see all of Jon's report and more tomorrow night on 60 Minutes right here on CBS.